I think safety is so important to talk about, and understanding why things affect us the way they do. I think when we talk about understanding that as humans, everything that's impacting us subconsciously, we're just trying to keep ourselves safe out of harm's way.
Yes, yes, we do. And I feel the moment we acknowledge that, so much of the resistance can already go away because we're not fighting against ourselves initially.
Yeah.
Because so often I feel that there is like shame and frustration around how we behave from ourselves, instead of like saying like, okay, well, there's a reason for that behavior, for that thought pattern, for that like feelings. It's trying to keep me safe, this subconscious reaction pattern. And instead of like acknowledging that and saying, okay, what do you need to feel safe in another environment? We're trying to fight against it. And I feel this is, well, not only counterproductive, but it's also like so exhausting, and it brings up so much more anxiety and worry, fear, frustration than there
Yeah.
needs to be.
And understanding that like our behaviors and say if we feel angry or we project that, coming back to again, that is a safety mechanism, and those safety mechanisms show up in behavior, and maybe not in a way that's good for others around you or for yourself, but it's your subconscious mind's way of creating safety, no matter how that looks, because there is no right and wrong in your subconscious mind. There is just, we got to figure out what's going to work to keep you safe. And maybe that safety is having control over everything going on in your life. And then that shows up behaviorally when things don't go your way, then you're upset and you react. But when you let go to the control, to the flow of life, I always like to think about the flow of life like
Yeah,
water. I always go back to the
yeah.
water. Like how can I be like the water today? How can I
Hmm.
let life flow when challenges arrive? How I let them flow. We had many challenges moving into this new house, and I was so proud of myself just with all these hiccups with like moving and bank stuff. I just surrendered to it, and that felt really amazing. But then when we got to our new house, I felt all this control, and I couldn't let go, and I was challenging everything. And then it's just interesting when you can create that awareness of like, oh my gosh, I'm my behavior's different, my body sensations feel different because I'm trying to create safety. And why am I trying to do that? Because there's fear of moving into a new house and things being different. But I could see that I was just scared and that I needed to create safety. And then I believe when you create that awareness, you can be intentional in that letting go to the flow.
I love that. And I love how you put it, because I feel essentially most of the stuff that we're doing that is like out of alignment, if we would check in to really become aware of that, is because we're missing safety, because we feel insecure, unsure, we feel not supported. And the thing that you touched upon just now is like, before we can like realize, like you said, "Oh, okay, I'm behaving differently, I'm feeling differently, I have this like sensations that I don't have when I feel safe." You need to like kind of have a baseline first of what it is to feel safe. And I feel here we are already into a very important point in the society we currently live in. Most people don't feel safe. Most people are so much in fight, flight, freeze response that this like baseline of safety is not even there. So how to know how your body is behaving, is feeling when it's safe, if you don't have that on a regular basis? So that's like getting to know yourself first, is what I want to say. And how you would behave in a safe environment is very important, so that you can then distinguish, oh, I'm actually not feeling safe right now. My body is like kind of tense, much more than it is in a safe
Yeah,
environment.
exactly. And just kind of speaking, I think we touched on this before we hit record, but it's funny when we talk about safety, because I'm in a home right now and I know I'm safe here with my husband. No one's coming to get me. Nothing bad is happening. But safety, when you really go internal, has a different almost meaning. Yesterday, I did a meditation, and all I did was put my hand on my heart and on my stomach. And for 10 minutes, I said the same three things over. I am safe. I am loved. I am enough. And I like cried through that for 10 minutes because, yes, I feel safe in my home, but there's something hitting deeper inside of fear that when I actually speak the words, connect to my body, I felt it in a different somatic way. And as I spoke through those words over and over, they got more powerful. And then by continuing to do that, I was able to release it. And I keep coming back to that, like, of course I'm safe, but really you might not feel safe emotionally in the home of your body. You might not feel safe with things that you're thinking and feeling about the past and the future. It's like when we think about the past, it creates unsafety. When we think about fear of the future, we don't feel safe. Do we feel safe in our physical surroundings? Probably sure, but we probably don't emotionally feel safe from the past. And like anxiety all stems from, worry about like thinking about the past and worry about the future. If you bring yourself back to presence, there can be no anxiety because there's no thoughts about future or past. And it's really interesting when dealing with anxiety with clients is really reminding and teaching them how to actually be present in your surrounding, in your room, in what's going on with you right now to help calm those like anxious feelings.
It is so important what you just said. I had shivers. Thank you for sharing about the affirmations you had in your meditation. I totally get the importance of them, and I think what you touched on is true for so many women, at least in my world, not speaking for everybody. It's like this logically, yes, there's safety. Like we kind of live in a safe environment. We have that home. Everything is fine. Like like you said, there's no one coming to get us or like, whatever. But this is like safety here, and the layers of safety there are different. One's just like, how are you feeling? How is your body feeling? Are you emotionally feeling safe? Are you like physically feeling safe? I, for myself, when I realized that, and actually I was so reminded of it to talk just now, I could have said no for all of my life, even though I had a beautiful childhood with like really loving parents. I've never felt safe to talk about what I want to talk. I've never felt safe to express myself authentically, even now after so many years and so many years of working the inner work and being on my spiritual path. It's still hard for me to share my truth. And only when I've got why that is, because I've had some past life remembrances really clear. As I'm like, okay, well, it's not even this life. And I haven't felt safe. I haven't even been aware that I don't feel safe. And that's why I'm not talking. That's why I'm not speaking up. And so many women in my world have kind of a similar thing. So I love that you touched on this, that we kind of need to become aware of the different levels of safety and how we feel if we really truly, and all levels combined, feeling safe.
Yeah. So it sounds like, so as children, I'm a regression hypnotherapist. So often in sessions, we regress back to like childhood memories or whatever's relevant for the issue at hand. And when we regress to a memory of maybe not feeling safe to express yourself, to share what you're feeling, and to have a caregiver be able to emotionally support you through that, make you feel like you can use your voice, make you feel heard, make you feel important and worthy. If you have an event that happens where you don't feel heard, you don't feel safe to express yourself, you feel like you've been like shushed or quiet, here's the root cause of a feeling that shows up of not being important enough to be heard. So then from that point on, from that one memory, your body's internalized that feeling your whole life, you're looking for evidence to prove that that's true. Because if you didn't have a caregiver to support that and be like, no, you're important, we want to hear you, like, you feel valued. If that only happens once, then maybe that's not going to affect you. But if you have a caregiver that is constantly kind of just not super present with you, you're gonna validate that feeling, and you're gonna look for evidence your whole life, and then that feeling is gonna show up in 3 different ways. It's gonna show up as physical issues, maybe a bad back, a sore shoulder, gut health issues, a bad knee, a bad ankle. That's a stored emotion that shows up physically in the body. Mentally, it's going to impact your thoughts, your self-worth, and your belief in yourself, right? And behaviorally, you're going to act different. So these like little key things, this is why regression hypnosis, I believe, is so important for understanding the subconscious mind, being able to get to the root, to find out where it started that you didn't feel safe to be you. Because really, we're born into this world just wanting to be us, wanting to be accepted and appreciated. We're born perfect. We're not born with health issues unless there's stuff in pre-utero. We're not born with gut issues. We're not genetically, we are born perfect. And it is our caregiver's responsibility to be able to help support a child's emotions. When we're born, our brains are 75% developed. We're the only species where our brains are underdeveloped when we're born. The only species. That's because we're 4 years old when our brains are fully developed. We would not be able to come out of our moms. That's why like the caregiver role is so crucial to help the development of a child, because things that you face when you're a child impact you as an adult, because those are your stored interpretations of events, your stored feelings, your self-worth, your value in the world. And it's not to say we're to blame our parents for ways they weren't able to show up for us, because it's all a domino effect. It's all learned behaviors. It's all, so we could sit here and we could be like, our parents suck. They did this. They weren't there for us. But at the end of the day, we just have to show up, take responsibility. These are the things they should be teaching you in school, right? Is like, how do you emotionally support your kids? Yes. How to emotionally support yourself? And when we can understand where those root issues or those interpretations, why we needed to create safety, when we can understand why and when they showed up, and then the evidence that we've been gathering over our lifetime to make that statement true, when we can uncover the root, it's like the unraveling of all the lies you've told yourself over the years because you're trying to keep yourself safe. We do an exercise in my hypnotherapy sessions where after we do regression, we really try to look into, say the issue is anxiety. We look into what the role of the anxiety is, what the function of it is, what purpose and intention is. And every time I do that with clients, 99% of the time, the issue is to create safety. It's always to create safety. And I don't prompt clients. The role of this shows up because to keep me safe, to keep me small so I'm safe, to keep me protected. That's what it always comes up as, because we're just humans, just built for survival. And when we can understand where the root, the reason, and the cause for us needing to create safety on such a big field, it can be the catalyst to so many shifts, to letting go, to rewriting your own story. Because we're born into a world of agreements we didn't agree upon, right?
Yeah. That is so powerful. I try to decide where to start first. There are two things that really stand out, which the one thing is how we validate or seek evidence for these beliefs that we've created, true or false. And the other thing is that safety and the importance of like learning early on in life, like this, like really deep feeling of safety, so that we can now, like I'm a mother speaking for myself, try to create a environment where my child does not need to work through all the issues I or other generations before me needed to work themselves through in order to like connect back to themselves, because like I try to not condition him as much so that he doesn't have to pull off all these layers of like, who am I? How does it feel to be safe? How does it feel to like be authentically me and all that stuff? So really hitting that break and that ancestral trauma passing on is like, I think, a really big thing that we're on the way collectively, which is so beautiful. But also it's like emphasizing the importance of really being mindful and being like a emotional and spiritual intelligent parent, which could create quite a bit of pressure depending on the perspective we look at it. So I think that's something to like, the earlier we are aware of that, the more easy it is for us to like really not give that on to the next generation. That's the one thing. And then the other thing that I think would be so helpful for more people to know is like how our brains work. You touched on that before. Let's say like that there was an issue at an early age that made the belief come up that, oh, I'm not worthy of having the love of my parents. I'm not worthy of like really having the attention. And then all the time after, that's how I understood your explanation, we're kind of trying to find evidence for this feeling. So every time, for example, your mother looks away or needs to like go to work or so, we're kind of like creating evidence around this like belief of, oh yeah, that's true. You see, I'm really not worthy of it. She's going away. Things like this, and how we like kind of solidify these beliefs that may once be very small when they came up, but like over years and years and years of life, kind of like made them really solid, really big. So that's why it's so hard to change them afterwards.
So I'll give you an example, talking about like generationally, like past generations, different theorists, psychologists, they believed that your baby should self-soothe. When you put your baby down, you let them cry it out to self-soothe and fall asleep. Okay, that was my generation. But that's what people knew. That was the information out there. How do you create an amazing human being? Like, how do you create lawyers and doctors? Well, you teach them to be strong and independent and confident and be able to self-soothe through any emotion. And that's just what parents thought, a lot of them. And that was me. I was left alone to cry as a baby. And then that created, I'm a baby alone in a room. I am terrified. It doesn't just happen once. I'm scared. It is safety. It is, I'm not important enough. I'm crying for help and no one's coming. And then that is that I'm not important. We'll just use that shows up. And then that pattern shows up. And then as a baby, our neurons, they're like building and trying to connect and shape and create these different patterns to create that safety. And when we have these repetitive patterns and needs not being met, that actually misaligns our firing patterns in our brain. It affects our amygdala and hippocampus, and we go into fight or flight mode. And then that's when we, like, as adults, actually don't have any kind of control. If you have a trigger, you're put into fight or flight mode. Your hippocampus and amygdala, it's firing in a different way. Sometimes if you've had a lot of emotional trauma as a child, your hippocampus is actually going to be smaller. It shrinks. And that is your ability to be able to deal with like life events and stress. And so when you grow up in like a toxic stress environment, it's going to change the patterns in your brain. When you have tolerable stress growing up with, normal stresses of a child, of like frustration, I can't tie my shoe, I I got snow and rocks in my shoes, and then having a caregiver kind of help you manage those emotions, that is so key, is like having a caregiver being able to show up for you in the stressful times and be like, hey, this is stressful, it's okay. And
Well,
that creates safety. But sometimes I believe that step gets missed, and then that's where kids create their own interpretations. And adult Meilssa would interpret things differently than 4-year-old Meilssa, who was left on her own to interpret something differently, because
of
I
course.
see things differently now as an adult, but as kids, we don't know. We're literally, our brains are literally developing, and we borrow from our parents' nervous systems to regulate us. When we're not regulated, we need a caregiver to help us regulate. I think it's important to kind of follow through with your kids and be like, what are you feeling? What are you experiencing? And how can I help you through that? Can make such a big difference. But we're all just doing our best as parents, and we're all just navigating. It's a tough job being a parent. So it's tough. Because you think about it, like, I don't want my kids to have all these issues when they grow up. And
Of
what if I
course.
make those issues, and then we like self-shame ourselves, right?
Which is not creating safety
Which is
for
not creating.
ourselves and then for our kids. So I think it's a like duality again. Always in life, this duality we hold of like parenting ourselves while we parent our kids. Because if you're not aware of what you just said, you learned within the last years, you could not have changed your behavior so that now your child can change their behavior. It's just like, if we are not aware that there's no shame, no judgment, I truly believe everyone does the best they can in that moment. And if it's like not good or horrible from the outset, then that just means that this person doesn't know any better. It's not that they're a bad person. But
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't have to even be that dramatic, but to say like, if we don't know how to validate our feelings, how to be like emotionally resilient or like even emotional stable, managing our feelings in a way that is healthy, how can we teach our kids? Because if that comes up and your child, you know that in the first years they're just crying a lot, and it's like really make your nervous system really fuzzy, and you're getting angry, you're getting frustrated because you don't know how to regulate yourself. So I think it's so important that more and more parents or caregivers learn to work with themselves, with their emotions, like try to transmute their own pain from their childhood so that they can then show up as safe persons for the children, so that the children then can learn something else. So it's like such a beautiful big circle. You're healing yourself, you're healing the kids, so that these kids, our kids, if they have kids, they don't need to like work through that, because we have already, they'll have their own issues and we cannot protect them. But this is something that they don't need to copy from us, because we've already changed it. And I think that's like a good sign for the next generation, if more and more people like really become aware and also responsible of their own actions. Because I don't know how it is here in Europe, it is very much just like, oh, you made me feel that, you made me angry, you made me whatever.
Yeah,
So that we're not trying to take on the responsibility for our feeling. That's like a
that's
paradigm that I've observed a lot when growing up. And we could easily say to our kids, like, okay, you behaved badly, so you made me angry. And they're like giving the responsibility for our frustration, our anger, our like way we behave to the kids, which is like so not okay. But that's like a normalized way to do it. So just thinking about what that creates in that generation, how
I know, you
unsafe.
project your feelings. You behave that way, you made me feel. Or how about we say, well, you behaved this way. Can you tell me what you were feeling that made you act upon this way? It's like we feel hurt on the inside, so then we project onto others in angry ways. It's kind of backwards, right?
Yeah.
We're not taught how to express our feelings and be like, this happened and I feel this way. We learn how to express in anger.
Uh-huh.
We have that shows up.
It's like actually like coming from a limiting perspective because we don't know better. And like you said, I think that's such a beautiful example for like really making really clear how different truths can be. What did just happen? He felt very insecure and it was just his way of coping. But like, if you don't talk about it, if you don't like try to not solve it, but like bring it up and become aware of what just happened and like maybe compare truth and experiences, that wouldn't have been resolved, and each of you would have been more hurt or left with a grudge to like deal with, instead of like saying, okay, what just happened? What can we like kind of untangle it? And I think there's a big power in just bringing the awareness to that, and without judging, going into these situations, you're like, okay, that's what I've perceived. What's your view on this? Like, how can we kind of find a basis in here to work from, so it doesn't have to be like, I think, a really complicated process, but being emotionally, I don't want to say adult enough, being emotionally aware enough to do that thing in its own, because then if you're triggered by how your kids behave, you couldn't have held that space. So it again comes back to everyone's awareness. It's just so big, isn't it? It's like I'm always amazed by how the universe works and how beautifully designed our communication and self-discovery processes are. It's just like, if we go down one of these rabbit holes, I think it's really interesting because there's so many, actually it's empowering. There's so many tools we can use to unravel that, uncover all these insecurities, these issues, and come back to what we started with, to come back to a feeling of safety. So with how you do it, I think it's important to become aware that this is a thing to look at.
And it's like these feelings of not feeling safe or insecurity, and then these limiting beliefs that we create, they become so embedded in us. It's really hard to remind yourself every single day that that's not the truth, and to have a new truth, something that's real to you. And I believe for anybody you're working with, this is what I do with clients at the end of the session. I make them a hypnosis recording. So say your beliefs were that you're not important, you're not safe, you're not loved. We create affirmation and let 15, 20-minute recording for them to listen to every single day, to remind them of what we've let go, to remind them to come back to presence, to remind them of their value, their worth, and including in things that they want in their life, things that they want to achieve, things that they want to do, how they want to feel every day when they wake up, how they want to walk their path in life every day. And I always say this recording, it's like learning a new subject. It's like learning math. You can't just learn it one day and then be like, I'm healed. It's that like consistency. It's in like, I need to hear these words over and over. I need to consistently put in the effort to thinking differently, because thoughts create things.
Yes.
Your mental images create things. So anybody that might be struggling, I would suggest to even just write down affirmations to say every day. You can do your own hypnosis recording. I have free hypnosis recordings on YouTube for confidence, weight loss, anxiety, and just getting into hypnosis. And that really helps reprogram at the subconscious level. So consciously, we're always somewhat aware of our behaviors and what's going on, but our subconscious mind runs that in the back, and then we feel like, I don't have control of these behaviors, thoughts, feelings, anything going on. So when we get put into a hypnotic state, which is really just a relaxed meditative state, and then hearing these words that are going to resonate, build you up, and help let go of the past and stop worrying about the future, it can be so life-changing to just make that commitment to hear that for yourself every day, to build yourself up, to remind yourself of your safety, of your power, of your confidence, knowing that you are the creator of your life.
Yeah.
So hard. Our thoughts from our past take over, and they impact our future because we're stuck in these negative loops, these negative thoughts. I'm never going to be financially abundant. I'm never going to have this. I'm always going to be fat. I'm always going to have this skin issue. That creates your reality. You make it true and you own it. So when you can stop owning your issues, I talk a lot when people have, like, if you say my anxiety or my OCD, is to stop owning it, is to disconnect the anxiety, put it over here, the OCD. I just worked with a 16-year-old who had severe OCD her whole life. And after one session, it's changed her life. She stopped owning her OCD. And she said that had such an impact on her, not owning the my anymore. Because you claim the issue of yours. You own it. You bought it. You've paid for it. But when you remove it and just put it over there, that shows up sometimes and it sucks. But just don't own it.
Yeah. Isn't it like amazing how this like little shift from the outset, you could say, like it's only a word, might be, who cares, but you care. It's like it makes such a huge difference. These little things that we think are not important are often the most important ones. So like I love what you said about like distancing ourselves from things, not like saying like, you're bad, you have to leave forever now. Yeah, it would be nice if the anxiety leaves, but like for a first start, even making that shift and bringing a bit of space between you yourself and the anxiety and not owning it anymore, how much of a difference it can make to become more aware of what we say, how we feel, so that we can then change. And I love that you just made hypnosis so simple, because I feel sometimes there is a lot of resistance to it, or like a lot of like mysticism around it. What is it doing? Like, can I trust it? Is this complicated? Can I do it? There are so many things coming up. So just being in a relaxed state and listening to affirmations that you might have created for yourself is like, I think it makes it really easy to start doing that, to start like embracing that tool for you, and like really owning a different approach. I'm super curious. Like, if you have a client with an aversion issue, and you give them these meditations, these hypnosis to listen to every day, is there sometimes things coming up like they're not doing the exercise every day because of like, I can't imagine from working with my clients, but also like from how I behaved before I started on my journey, that's like I would have even sabotaged myself into like not doing these exercises because they're unfamiliar, they're maybe not feeling safe, or I'm not feeling even worthy of like having this new tool and integrating. Are there sometimes like, hiccups and the start to even implement these tools?
For sure. Like clients, they'll tell me some listen faithfully. The most successful clients after a hypnosis session will listen to it before they go to bed and in the morning. But when I have follow-up calls with some clients, they'll be like, I haven't been listening. I notice a difference when I don't listen during the day. They know, they're aware. So it's just encouraging that like, you got to listen to this every day. It's your homework, and that, it's for you. It's for your self-work, your self-value, your self-love. But yeah, there's always resistance. There's resistance to things that are different. We're comfortable in what we're used to. And for me, like an example, yoga was really resistant to me because it was really connecting with inside of the body. And I did have a challenging time making that a consistent routine, but I noticed a difference when I didn't do it every day. And now I probably fought through over 6 months of resistance because it's like I knew it was good for me, but it was uncomfortable. It made me feel things in my body I didn't want to feel. It made me connect. Yoga is very spiritual. It's like these recordings too. It's like sometimes it's hard for clients to hear those things because they believe something else for so long. But it's so important when I do the recording is we build it together, because something that's going to resonate for me is not going to necessarily resonate for you. That's why that like individuality and yeah, that is the homework post hypnosis session. The homework is listening to the recording every day for a minimum of 21 days. And we do follow-up calls and come up with strategies. But in a hypnosis session, all we're doing is putting you into a really relaxed state and then talking about what the issue is, and then just remembering a time where you felt like that before. And whatever memory comes up, we discuss about the feelings and the beliefs and interpretations made, and then we dismantle it all. By the end of the session, we dismantle all those interpretations, limiting beliefs, and we rescue our inner child from those parts. Because it's so interesting, because my business is called Align Body Back to Mind Consciousness, because parts of ourselves get stuck in the past. And so when we can align back to present self for mind and body, we can be truly aligned in who we are, who we want to be. But when our mind is worried about the future and our body's stuck in the past, we're not working together as a team. We're not listening to each other. So we want to align back our body and minds to operate, to remember who we are, to believe in the magic of who we are, that we're just energetic beings. We are love and light. We have to remember that, come back to our worth. So it's like hypnosis is really the unraveling of all the belief systems that got stuck somatically in your body. We're releasing those stored, stuck emotions so that we have the opportunity to relearn and to what you want, like today. And that's why I'm so passionate about that, just to see every session with a client. By the end of the session, I feel this weight like off of them. Everything's just melted out. Their face is different. They're smiling, and it's emotional process, but it's this unraveling. It's this letting go. And as humans, we just have this innate, we need to understand. We need to understand the how, the why, the where, the when. And so many people have no clue why they're struggling with the issues they are. They might think, yes, deep down they might not feel important, but it's really digging in. It's like we're so scared to go into our own selves. We dissociate with all these things around us because we're so scared of us internally. We're scared of all these things we feel on the inside. And that's where the work needs to be done, is just facing because it's hard to face the hurt. It's hard to face those feelings that don't feel good in your body.
Yeah. But like it's so interesting that this is coming up, because I had that like coming up today as well in a recording before, where it's about like looking at your shadow, how scary it is often. And I truly agree with what he said, that we humans try to always understand things logically. That's how we're wired. That's how we're like culturally brought up as well. And if we don't, then I feel it's like a loose end going nowhere. And that's why we sometimes behave in a way that we don't even know why we do it. And bringing this awareness, like inviting the logic back in without it letting it lead the whole life. It's like reclaiming the power. When you just talked, I always had like this reclaim your power back to yourself, because we can release what you said, stored emotions from the body, which in itself is so beautiful. But when you then think that you're at the same time kind of claiming back that power to yourself from the past experience that you had, and you like kind of reintegrating that into yourself, while simultaneously releasing the stuckness, the tension, the uncomfort out of your system, no wonder people look different after the session. No wonder there is so much progress. I think it's a beautiful way to invite all the pieces in and not just be in the logic or not just be in the body, but to like really come back to what we touched on before, come back to the present or into the alignment of all the different layers we as humans have, and not try to like live in just one of these because it might look more manageable on the outside, but like really say like, okay, whatever the universe is bringing to me, I can handle it. And if I had these uncomfortable experiences or trauma from the past, I'm meant to overcome them, because otherwise it wouldn't have shown up. We're so strong, we can overcome all these things that happen to us. So there actually is, I think, there is nothing that we cannot overcome, but we kind of believe for whatever reasons that we're not strong enough to look at these things. I think it's really fascinating how we kind of avoid our shadow when it's the thing that brings us forward the most.
Because it's scary.
Yeah, it is. It is. Maybe it's even scary to think of how powerful we are.
Right?
Yeah.
And then like the thought of being powerful, right? Like taking that lioness energy back. And that's what it is when just like you said, as we're letting go, as we're shedding, we're taking our power back to stand and confidently in who we are, and knowing that we're all individual, and there's no right or wrong, and that we can just yes. And living without expectations, I think, is one of the most beautiful things I try to keep forward in my mind, is living without expecting of others, and then not being hurt if you do have an expectation of someone, not being hurt when they don't fulfill that expectation. And then also on the flip side of that, the double-edged sword is not feeling like others expect things of you, not feeling the pressure of I have to do this, they expect me to do this, letting yourself free of that. Because that is freeing. It's like, okay, I can't expect things of other, but what on the flip side, people can't expect things of me. And that means I get to live authentically, and I get to do things when I say I'm going to do them. That has been really freeing, and a big lesson from my husband that he's taught me is just to live without expectations. And I have to think about that a lot, because that it comes forward naturally for a lot of people, like for all of us, is to expect things to be done at a certain time. I expect my husband to understand something. I might expect him to have done this. I may have expected him to read my mind.
I'm laughing because I had that today. I thought, like, why am I expecting him to know what I want without saying it? You know, sometimes it comes up. And it's so funny. Like, actually,
so hard to ask. Why is it so hard to ask?
We could have just asked,
because it doesn't feel safe.
Yeah.
So maybe it didn't feel safe in the past to use your voice and express what you want. So they create expectations, and then you're hurt by these expectations not happening in your mind. You're hurt, and they have no idea.
No,
they have no clue.
I think the universe has quite a good humor with these kind of scenarios, and it's really lovely that it came up, because with a lot of like my clients are empaths who kind of turned people pleasers really early on in their lives, and what you just said so beautifully with the expectation, I think is like a big chunk of the work of someone who is like almost naturally pleasing people, for even thinking about like, oh, does this align with me? So this like ditching expectations on both sides, not just like, oh, I'm not expecting anything from you, but like also like, oh, okay, well, you also like don't need to expect anything from me, rather than like being respectful and like, well, not going around hitting other people, but I'm talking more subtle energies than the basic survival strategies here. It's actually, they said like, okay, well, if I'm being free of expectations on your side, please, let's do the same on my side so that we can both navigate authentically without like feeling we need to tiptoe around. I think that's a big, big, big thing, especially for women to shift through. Meilssa,
so
thank you.
Chatting with you today.
What a beautiful.
I love talking about safety came up. Safety was so present today for both of us.
True. It's interesting. I wonder what it is that it was, but it was so clear. And thank you for being open for that. I feel that's really something that a lot of people need to hear. Maybe at the start of this year, 2025, when we're recording, is safety feels collectively a big issue. So maybe that's why it's so present, because we not only on an individual level are working through this, but also on a collective level. And I feel the more we individually are aware, we can collectively move into safe living together, which sounds cheesy, but so beautiful to me. So thank you so much for holding space and for your time and energy and your wisdom.
Thank you so much. It's been such an honor to chat with you and to share what I love speaking about. I could just talk about this stuff forever.
That is so beautiful. I can feel that. Oh, I thank you, my dear.
From within, creating safety from within.
Yes, how beautiful. I will share all your contacts in the show notes below so that people can find you if they feel drawn to work with you on their past life issues, so that we can all come to a space where we are more authentically ourselves without feeling insecure about it. I think that is such a beautiful, important work. Thank you, my dear. Wonderful day to you. Speak very soon.
Bye.
Bye.